Hi, my name is Maggid Jim Brule. I'm here to share a story with you today and perhaps a little inspiration. This is a story from the Jewish tradition, but I think it speaks to us all, and it's called Leaves from the Garden of Eden. Once there was a man named Shepsel, and Shepsel was the owner of the largest stable in the town of Ludomir. Shepsel was trusted by everyone, and he and his wife and their daughter Leah were beloved by the community. Now it happened one day that Shepsel was out in the fields, and he noticed a young boy approaching him, a little older than his daughter. And the boy was clearly in great distress. He didn't seem to have any injuries to him, but he was clearly walking in pain. And when Shepsel hurried over to him, he noticed that he was feverish, not well. He walked with a limp, and clearly he had been the subject of many illnesses in the past. So, of course, he took the young boy home, and he learned that his name was Chaim. He and his wife and Leah cared for Chaim and nursed him back to health. And as his health returned, Chaim's face started to glow with a joy that Shepsel thought he probably hadn't seen in many years. And so when Chaim asked Shepsel if he could help with the horses, Shepsel was grateful for the help. And he took him out and he taught him everything he needed to know about caring for horses, how to groom them, how to feed them, how to exercise them. And so it was for many months. The Chaim became part of the family, helping in the stables, living with the family, and becoming beloved by all of them. Now, unfortunately, as I mentioned, Chaim had had a lot of illnesses. And one day he was beset by another. No one knows where it came from, but it hit him harder than he had ever been hit before. And despite all their efforts and the efforts of the community, it was too much for Chaim, and he passed on. The family and the community went into mourning, but especially Leah, who loved young Chaim as if he were the brother she never had. Now, after the days of mourning had passed, after that month had passed, Shepsel and his family knew they had to return to work. But Leah, it seemed beyond her. She was so sad, she was so depressed, she had no energy, she just stayed in bed. And her depression and her sadness seemed to deepen with every day. And soon Shepsel and his wife began to worry about whether she would survive. And they would take turns spending the night sitting by her bed to watch over her and pray for her. Now, on one of the nights when Shepsel was sitting watch, he dozed off. And he had a dream. And in that dream, who should appear to him but Chaim? Chaim with an even bigger smile on his face than he had ever had before. And Shepsel recognized even in his dream that Chaim was no longer living. But he was so happy, he was almost radiant. So Chaim asked him, Shepsel asked him, Chaim, where are you? What are you doing? What's befallen you? And Chaim said, oh, Shepsel, after I died, I went to my judgment. And even though I only know a couple of simple prayers, the heavenly court saw how well I had treated the horses and how loving I had been. And so for all that, they gave me a place in the Garden of Eden. And here I have the job of tending to the horses of the holy tzaddikim, the saints, so that they can travel amongst the heavenly realms. Oh, it's wonderful. Shepsel, I can't tell you. And you, Shepsel, how is it with you and the family? And Leah? Shepsel began to weep. He said, oh, Chaim, I don't know what to do. Our poor Leah, she's so sad at having lost you. She hasn't been out of her bed, it seems, for weeks, and we're very, very worried about her. A look of both concern and caring crossed Chaim's face. And he said, I'll tell you what you do. And he reached down, and from the ground he lifted up a big handful of leaves. Oh, they were such a rich color, and in his dream Shepsel could smell them. It was a fragrance he'd never heard before. And he said, Shepsel, all you need to do is boil these into tea and give them to Leah, and she will recover, for these are leaves from the Garden of Eden. Now, before Shepsel could ask how he was ever going to get leaves from there to here, he awoke. And there, scattered across his daughter's bed, covering her and the blanket, blown in from the open window, were leaves of a sort he had never seen before. And he picked one up and crushed it beneath his thumb and forefinger, and oh, it had that same smell. He knew these were those leaves, and he gathered them up quickly, and he raced down to the kitchen, and he boiled a pot of the most aromatic tea one could ever imagine. And he and his wife slowly fed it to Leah. And it wasn't long before she made a full recovery. Now, as her life continued, she grew a little older. She married a man, and together they had a son. And they named the son Chaim. Now, this is a story about miracles and angels and the Garden of Eden. So what does it have to do with us? You know, for me, the leaves that we smell are the memories that we carry, and the memories that we make, and the memories that we share. What leaves will we leave behind? What leaves will we share with those around us? What leaves of blessing will we be able to retrieve from others who are next to us? Look for the sweet scent of these pleasant memories. Make a few yourself and pass them on. And in that way, we all will be blessed with leaves from the Garden of Eden.